Hey y'all, happy Tuesday. So we're going to give everyone just a few minutes to come into the room. I know the notifications are going out a little slow. In the meantime, if you would like to grab one of these awesome unicorns, Fearless and AR-15 type of girls that I have available in hoodies or t-shirts, go over to RhondaMary.com and go ahead and grab one of those. So hopefully your week is off to a good start. And if you were looking for a little bit of good news, then I believe I have some here tonight. As you come into the room, please let me know that you are here. Hey, King BJ. And so this is going viral. Everyone is talking about this today. This Florida judge has now shot down the federal mask mandate. And so all over the country, okay, you have pilots and flight attendants that are rejoicing and crying tears of joy. So, hey, but anyway, let's go ahead and take a look at this according to the Washington Post so we can talk a little bit about this and what this means and what some of us already knew, okay? Now, if you are new here, make sure you go ahead and hit the subscription button below. Also, you can follow me on Instagram where I'll post way more content throughout the week, Rhonda_Mary. I also have my second page, RhondaMary Vids. So, according to the Washington Post, TSA stops mask enforcement. TSA stops mask enforcement after federal judge voids a mandate. The transportation mandate has been among the highest profile mask requirements in the country. Federal officials stopped enforcement of a federal mask mandate Monday in transportation settings after a federal judge struck down the requirement, raising public health concerns and prompting several airlines to announce that face coverings are optional on domestic flights. U.S. District Judge Catherine Kimball Mazzell of the Middle District of Florida said the mandate exceeds the statutory authority of the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Federal officials last week had extended the mask mandate for commercial flights and in other settings, including on buses, ferries, and subways, until at least May 3rd. Now, of course, May 3rd is not even that far away. The transportation mandate has been among the highest profile mask requirements in the country, persisting. Okay, take note of this, persisting after most school districts and other jurisdictions have allowed similar mandates to expire. Conflicts over masks have been particularly acute on airplanes where some flight attendants have been physically attacked and verbally abused for enforcing mask rules. Y'all, abuse is never funny. The way the article is worded is a little funny, okay? The decision comes as coronavirus cases are again climbing in the Northeast as the BA.2 Omicron subvariant, which is more contagious than its predecessor, becomes a predominant strain in the United States. Health officials say it is not clear whether the rise is the start of a large surge. The CDC's masking order has been enforced through directives issued by the Transportation Security Administration. The Biden administration official who shared guidance with the reporters on the condition of anonymity said Monday evening that the court decision means that the CDC order is not in effect at this time. Therefore, the TSA would not enforce its security directives requiring the face coverings. And so, okay. Let me show you here. Just in case you haven't seen, there are several videos that are circling on Twitter. If you are not on Twitter, Twitter is one of the better social media platforms in my personal opinion. Okay, but even the Washington Post shows some of these videos where you have your...
We just got an announcement a few minutes ago. Some of you may have seen the press release today that a judge overturned the mask mandate. So My company announces at this moment, if you choose to, you may remove your mask.
So this is just one video of quite a few that you can find floating around on Twitter and TikTok, where people are anywhere from, cheering and clapping and singing and tossing their mask and these types of things. Now, as we've already noted, whether people want to admit it, whether people want to accept it, many people, many Americans are ready to move on with their lives and ready to deal with this quote unquote virus as best as possible. At this point, to ignore the back and forth, the lies, all of the pandering, every single thing that we've seen during the COVID era, a lot of people are tired of, now we're looking at the highest and worst possibly inflation. They are projecting possibly sometime a depression in the very near future. You're looking at possible food shortages. All of these things, you're looking at an increase in crime, All of these things are a result of the lockdowns and what we've had to deal with the last 2 years at this point, As a response to locking people in their homes, insisting that this virus was so dangerous, even for young, healthy people, not allowing these people to work. We've seen record numbers of money printed and stimulus packages and all of this that have now resulted in the things that we are seeing, A lot of people are frustrated, and rightfully so. And for the people that are cheering this on and happy about this, I can totally understand that. But there's really no celebration until a lot of these people are held accountable. And just really held accountable, right? Even we look recently with, I believe it was Pfizer, I'm like 90% certain, y'all let me know in the comments, but this was Pfizer who was recently slowly releasing the adverse reactions from the vaccines. And if it had been up to them, would have waited like 70 years to release this information without any backlash, would have not felt to have any type of accountability to the people that are taking these vaccinations, have questions about the vaccinations or anything else of that matter, and wanting to basically hide these adverse reactions from people because of the way that they think it will look, or saying, well, we don't want anti-vaxxers to spin this. Well, if this is the truth, then that's just what it is, and it should be no way to spin that and to deny people that is problematic and questionable. And so they've recently been slowly releasing some of those documents over time. And that goes into a totally, a whole different thing. And hello to everybody coming into the room right now. And so in this short time, we've seen a lot change. We've seen a lot of things that we knew to be true, or we knew at the time didn't make sense for these things to slowly be repealed. I don't even know if y'all remember this, but this was a really crazy time in history, okay? Let me show y'all this. Do y'all remember when the airlines were literally saying like, hey, we're going to cut out middle seats. There'll be no middle seats used within the airplanes because, oh, it's going to help stop exposure. It's going to help stop transmission of the virus. And as we know, that didn't last long at all. And I was one of the first people that came out and was like, not only is this completely ridiculous, scientifically it makes no sense, but it's not going to last. And that's exactly what we've seen. And that's exactly what we've seen from so many other things. But keep in mind, if you are one of those people that either have a problem with this, you are scared, if you are even immunocompromised, you need to know that this is optional. You still have the choice to wear your mask. And something that was very problematic, even from the beginning, was this idea that you could just walk around in your dirty bandanas, okay, in your paper mask, in your surgical mask, in your unfitted mask. And there was never a high level focus on N95 masks. Now, why that could have been because of, I really don't even know to this day, availability and accessibility, price, production. I really don't know why that was, why people insisted on this fallacy that these paper cloths that first of all, we weren't even discarding of properly to be dealing with supposedly one of the most deadliest viruses. A lot of it just didn't make sense. So even now, and this is according to NPR.org, unlike a cloth or surgical mask, the N95 respirator, as well as similar products like a KN95 or KF94, is specifically designed to filter out the tiny viral particles that stay suspended in the air when exhaled by someone who's infected, and not just the large respiratory droplets that spray out like cannonballs and fall to the ground at close range. And so if you are one of these people, I've seen these tweets, oh my God, I gotta, like some guy talking about he's not gonna go to his daughter's wedding this weekend and all these other things of people saying, hey, I'm gonna switch my plans, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, and having the audacity to, because let's be real, like, this really should have never happened in the first place, because I don't know when the CDC became this fourth organization or member or entity or extension of the executive branch, okay? What's supposed to happen is that you have a Congress, you have your president, and then you have your judges, okay, and your Supreme Court judges. And so this is an example of how this system is supposed to actually work. A system of checks and balances is not supposed to be, the president and the CDC said something, so we're just going to do what the CDC says. But see, when you have a public education that is no longer focusing or not being forthcoming or not holistically talking about our rights, talking about how the government is supposed to work, and I wonder why, because that would, of course, benefit the government. When you have a citizenry that doesn't fully understand the links of their rights and what the government is supposed to do and is not supposed to do, and the checks and balances for keeping that government in check and in line. And so this is an example of that. And this is what is actually supposed to happen. So that judge comes in and say, hey, this is well beyond the CDC's authority. And if this is something that you want to do, you're going to have to do it the correct way, which is usually getting that to pass up through Congress, okay? And so rightfully so, well, I don't know about rightfully so, but you have some people celebrating this because of that. And of course, the judge was also out of Florida, which I find particularly interesting. What I also find interesting is that even after this time, right, with such a supposedly quote unquote deadly virus, let me know that you guys can see and hear me okay. Just making sure that it's working. Sometimes I have my internet trouble. Okay, I think we're good. All right. So with that being said, what I find oddly interesting and something that so few people, so little people, so few people are actually talking about is during the quote unquote deadliest virus in modern history. So deadly that, they masked you for 2 years. Your children were out of school 4 times at length. You were, put out of your jobs. You were put out of your businesses and all these other things, okay? And something that so few people are talking about is yet how millions of dollars, possibly billions, when you add up and look at the totals federally, but millions of these dollars were transferred to local policing. Not only that, not only was it transferred to local policing, but it was actually the Biden administration that emphasized that the cities should do this and encouraged it. Now, why I find that ironic and oddly interesting is that the Biden administration in particular used a lot of the momentum from the Black Lives Matter protests during 2020 to succeed right into the Oval Office, okay? Using people's concerns, anger, whatever you may want to call it, to win an election and then turn around and do the exact opposite. Now, looking at this in a more holistic way, you do have several of these cities across the country where crime is in fact increasing. But how wouldn't that happen when, first of all, you have people that have lost jobs, you have record inflation, and not only that, you have emboldened people by allowing them to cover their faces in public spaces. So this has been a complete recipe for disaster from the very beginning, okay? Now, a couple of cities that have done this, let's talk about it. Let's take a look at this. California, okay? California city spent huge share of federal COVID relief funds on police. Records reveal that some cities gave more stimulus money to law enforcement than to health, housing, and food initiatives. How is this possible in a quote unquote middle of a health crisis? San Francisco received $312 million in ARPA funds for fiscal year 2020 and allocated 49% to the police, so $153 million. Los Angeles spent roughly 50% of its first round of ARPA relief funds on the LAPD. Fresno spent $36.6 million of its CARES funds on the police, making up 67% of CARES spending on city salaries and roughly 40% of all Fresno CARES. San Jose allocated roughly $27.8 million of its CARES and ARPA funds to police and salaries. Long Beach, Oakland, Sacramento. But there's more. Hold on. Chicago used 60% of discretionary COVID-19 funding from feds on police. New York City, okay? New York City used funds to fund police. Now, you might say, why are you mentioning this? Why is this problematic if crime is rising in these cities? Is because what happens is in these cities, these people create the problems. They create the problems and then turn around and give us the solution. And not only that, you now have the nerve of these same people to turn around and use the same vehicle, Black Lives Matter, use the same vehicle that they used to get into these positions, they're now throwing under the bus. So now when Black Lives Matter is coming out, buying their mansions, okay, you have people either coming out, speaking out against them, or completely saying nothing, not even addressing it. You have people like Mayor Adams, now that crime is increasing in New York City, says, well, where the heck is Black Lives Matter? It's an assault to our intelligence, and all the people that had all the noise and the smoke and everything to say, and you don't care about these issues and whoop 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 and all this other stuff, are now silent, are now quiet as these things are happening in real time. These police funds are being exploded. Not even just that, but on the backs of what they were telling y'all was the main issue that we were facing for the last 2 years. It's an affront to our intelligence. It's insulting. And the way that so many people have allowed themselves to be used and manipulated, not to even mention some of the people in these same cities that I just mentioned have been out just partying and colluding and laughing it up at these elitist Hollywood parties. While they're coming on camera, pleading with you and your families to hide in your closets, to cover your faces, they've been out partying and having drinks and laughing at you. And so, the very people, so many people that I pleaded with, like, dig deeper. Like, think about this. Look at this. Being accused of, you're just taking this position on COVID to increase your following, which in fact did not help me increase my following, by the way. Just throwing that out there. Okay? But now silent, disappeared, poof, gone, off into thin air. Now nothing to say. So I will say this, when midterms comes around, when the next presidential election comes around, these are the people that I don't want to hear from. Like, I don't care what you have to say. I don't care about your fake pretending. I don't care about, now I'm an activist for this and this. Today I care about this and that and this and that. And no, it's like pathetic what's been allowed to happen right in front of our eyes, and people are now quiet as a church mouse. And so when I call this out and I say, this is the record, this is Biden's record, this is these people's record of saying one thing and doing the opposite, and I'm literally showing you at every turn, but then the propaganda machine, as soon as it goes back around, people back to being asleep. Sleep. I mean, I just don't know what else to call it. I don't know what other proper term to use here. But at some point, I don't even know if I could blame these people for what they're doing when people just allow it, when people just turn a blind eye, when now you don't even want to talk about the adverse reactions report from Pfizer. Don't even want to talk about it. Want to ignore it. Want to ignore the fact that these people said they don't even want to release the information to however many decades later. Don't want to talk about the thing that you told us, oh, you trying to kill people's grandmas, right? The politicians that came out, oh, you just want haircuts. You trying to kill people's grandmas. They came and said this to your face, but then inked on paper and sent that money right over to the same police department that they told you they were defunding. And who's the real enemy here? Who's the real liar? Who's the real manipulator? But people forget. People forget. And why you thought that your neighbor was your enemy, your neighbor was trying to kill you. Now you have food shortages on the horizon. And so consistently, every single piece of data, even to this day, has remained that healthy people, fit people, and young people had had little effects of being affected by COVID. I'm not saying that right, but y'all know what I mean, okay? And least likely to die with COVID to this day. To this day. But when I said that 2 years ago, I was an enemy to many people. But that fact has remained true. And the fact has also remained that if you are immunocompromised, if you are overweight, if you are of older age, you should have then and should even now continue to take measures and personal precautions to protect yourself. And if you are going to do that, you should go the route that actually makes sense. If you believe in science, because, that's what you said. You believe in science. And so that would include wearing the proper fitted mask that actually reduce the transmission of the virus, not your paper, cloth, bandana, surgical, out the box, made in China mask. And so the least I can say is that, this has definitely been a growth journey for me. I'm proud that I've been able to see myself in real time remain consistent, able to stand on my own too, even when many people were against me, okay? Even when there were ridiculous accusations against me and against my character and against my motives. And very happy to see a lot of people that resisted the propaganda and the bullying and the coercion at every single turn. If you are one of those people that made it through making your own health decisions as it regarded to you without being allowed to be bullied into anything, whether it was for a job, whether it was to keep your friends, whether it was something that your favorite Hollywood actor told you and you to stay in their imaginary good graces, whatever the reason may have been, you should be proud of yourself. You should be proud of yourself. You should give yourself a pat on the back because you were able to survive and stand up against a billion-dollar propaganda machine. And hopefully, thankfully, that propaganda machine is slowly falling to crumbles as people are becoming more and more tired of the BS. So that is it for tonight. I think we'll end on that note. Thank you for joining. If you are not subscribed to this channel, please go ahead and hit that subscription button below. Also, if you would like to support and purchase any merch, like I have on my Unicorn Fairy Dust and AR-15s type of girl hoodie tonight, I also have t-shirts and other merch available over at RhondaMary.com, and you can also see other ways that you can help support and promote this channel. You can also do that on RhondaMary.com. If you are not following me on Instagram, where I post way more throughout the week, please make sure you do that. I have 2 pages there, Rhonda_Mary, and I also have my second page, RhondaMary Vids. Thank you to everyone who joined tonight. Thank you to my patrons, and bye. Have a good night.